Well, I assure you, my dear Henry, that was James. But his color's all wrong. Yes, you're right. It used to be a sort of darker shade. James was a bright red engine with bright red paint. And now he has new brakes. Let's listen to him. Oh, that's hard. James had two small wheels in front and six driving wheels behind. They weren't as big as Gordon's, and they weren't as small as Thomas's. You're a special mixed traffic engine, the Fat Controller told him. You'll be able to pull coaches or trucks quite easily. The red paint will cheer you up after your accident, continued Sir Topham Hatt kindly. You are to pull coaches today, and Edward shall help you. They went together to find the coaches. Be careful with the coaches, James, said Edward. They don't like being bumped. Trucks are silly and noisy. They need to be bumped and taught to behave. But the coaches, they get cross. And if you bump them, they will pay you out. Okay. So, be careful with them. They took the coaches to the platform, and then they were both coupled on in front. They simmered at the platform and waited for the passengers to board the train. The passengers and Sir Topham Hatt all came to admire James's shining rods and red paint. James was pleased. I really am a splendid engine, he thought, and he suddenly let off steam. Whee! Sir Topham Hatt, the station master, and the guard all jumped, and a shower of water fell on the Fat Controller's nice new hat. Just then, the whistle blew, and James thought they had better go, so they went. Go on, he puffed to Edward. Don't push, puffed Edward, for he did not like starting quickly. They passed the field where James had his accident. The fence was mended, and the cows were back again. James whistled, but they paid no attention, probably not to remember the whole ordeal. He didn't even want to stop at the first station because of what happened. Edward tried hard to stop, but the first coach was beyond the platform. For goodness sake, James. You have to stop at the right place. So they had to go back to let the passengers out. James felt a little embarrassed. Thomas was waiting at the other platform. Hello, James, he said kindly. Feeling better? Yes, Thomas, I am. Oh, that's right. Ah, that's my guard's whistle. I must go. Sorry, I can't stop. I don't know what the Fat Controller would do without me and to run this branch line. And he puffed importantly away. James and Edward left the junction and clattered over Gordon's Hill. It's ever so steep. It's ever so steep, puffed James. Boy. James, did I ever tell you about the time that Gordon got stuck up this hill and I had to push him up? Do you know how many trucks he was pulling? No. Only 6. The two chuckled. That evening, the two were coming back, and they had stopped at the station. James was still chuckling over how Gordon was stuck up that hill. He laughed so much that he got hiccups. Hic, hic. An old lady fell over because she was so frightened of hiccups for some reason, and she dropped all her parcels, and a porter and a guard had to run after her, picking them up. James pondered to himself, who is scared of hiccups these days? Then he decided to quickly run off. Don't push, grumbled Edward. James was quiet in the shed that night. He had enjoyed his day, but he was a little afraid of what the Fat Controller would say about the top hat. The next morning, James was still feeling good, but he was still feeling worried about the top hat as well. He, along with Edward and Gordon, were warming up to get their trains out. James had successfully passed the first test. But that wasn't so. The Fat Controller spoke to him severely. "If you can't behave," he said angrily, "I shall do something drastic." There was a pause. "I shall take away your red coat and paint you blue instead." "Ha ha ha," laughed Gordon. "Imagine that, James in blue paint." "Well, don't be like that, Gordon," said Edward. "It shouldn't happen at all." Why not, my dear Edward?" asked Gordon. "Well, we wouldn't want another me rolling around now, do we?" chuckled Edward. James was very cross. He bumped the coaches hard. He did not want to be painted blue at all. "Stupid Edward, stupid Gordon," he still moaned. And he hesitated to say stuff about the Topham Hat. He pushed the coaches to the platform. "Why do I even have to push my own coaches?" he moaned. "Gordon never does. And he's only painted blue. A splendid red engine like me should never have to fetch his own coaches. Why don't you do it, Thomas?" he shouted. "Because I have to go. Bye." James wasn't happy at all. He ran round to collect his coaches, not before giving them a rude bump. "Ooh, that was too bad," they groaned. To make James even more cross, no one would come near him. James felt very lonely. "I'll show them," he said to himself. "They think Gordon is the only one who can pull coaches." And as soon as the guard's whistle blew, he started off with a tremendous jerk. "Come on, come on, come on," and the coaches, squeaking and groaning in protest, clattered over the points onto the open main line. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," puffed James. "You're going too fast, you're going too fast," said the coaches. And indeed they were going so fast that they swayed from side to side. James laughed and tried to go faster, but the coaches wouldn't let him. "We're going to stop, we're going to stop, we're going to stop," they said, and James found himself going slower and slower and slower. Gordon laughed as he saw him stuck outside the tunnel. "What's the matter? What's the matter?" James asked his driver. "The brakes are hard on, leak in the pipe most likely. You banged the coaches enough to make a leak in anything," said the driver. They looked at all the brake pipes, and then they found a hole. "How shall we mend it?" asked the guard. James's driver thought for a moment. "We'll do it with newspapers and a leather bootlace. We'll ask the passengers for one." So the guard made everyone get out. "Does anyone have a leather bootlace?" he asked. They all looked at their feet, thought very hard, and said no, except one man in a bowler hat, his name was Jeremiah Jobling, bowler hat, who tried to hide his feet. "You have a leather bootlace there, I see, sir," said the driver. "Please give it to me." "I won't," said Jeremiah Jobling. "I can't." "Then," said the guard sternly, "I'm afraid this train will just stop where it is."
No.
Then the passengers started to all beat Jeremiah Jobling up.
I'll do it. Help.
So the fireman got his wrench back, and Jeremiah Jobling gave the laces to the guard, much to the delight of the happy passengers, except for the one who stole the wrench. Then the driver tied a pad of newspapers tightly round the hole, and James was able to pull the train. But he was a sadder and wiser James, and took care never to bump coaches again. One morning, Thomas rolled into the junction. Good morning, Edward, he said. Have you seen James? I haven't seen him in a while. Well, no one has seen him in a while, Thomas, said Edward. I wonder where he is now. James had not seen the Fat Controller for several days. He was left alone in the shed and he wasn't even allowed to go out and push coaches and trucks in the yard. Oh dear, he thought, I'll never be allowed out anymore. I'll have to stay in the shed for always. And he began to cry. Just then, the Fat Controller came along. I see you're sorry, James, he said. I hope now that you'll be a better engine. You have given me a lot of trouble and people are laughing at my railway. They might have laughed, but Henry was laughing at James's misfortune. Shut up, Henry, said the driver. Sir Topham Hatt never wanted to keep James in there forever, and he kindly let him out. James was delighted, and he backed down onto his truck. Ow, 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 screamed the trucks. We want a proper engine, not a red monster. James looked accusingly at Henry. Did you tell them this? He yelled. No, of course not, James, said Henry innocently. Have you got some bootlaces ready? James was furious and he set off. Come along, he puffed. We won't, screamed the trucks. But James didn't care, and he pulled the screeching truck sternly out the yard. Oh, come on, Henry, said the trucks. Why do you let us take the blame for this? Because he might need some more bootlaces along his journey, chuckled Henry to himself. As James trundled out of the yard, Thomas was very surprised to see him back on the rails again. They both whistled to each other. And he soon passed Gordon as well, who was also surprised. The trucks tried hard to stop them, but James still kept on. But sometimes the trucks' brakes would slip on, and sometimes their axles would run hot. Each time they would have to stop and put the trouble right, and each time James would start again, determined not to let the trucks beat them. Give up! You can't pull us! You can't! Pulled the trucks. I can and I will! Puffed James. And slowly but surely, he pulled them along the line. At last, they saw Gordon's Hill ahead. Look out for trouble, James, warned his driver. We'll go fast and get them up before you know it. Don't let them stop you. So James went faster, and they were soon halfway up the hill. I'm doing it, he panted. But it was hard work. Will the top never come, he thought, and then, with a sudden jerk, it all came easier. I've done it, he puffed triumphantly. Hurrah, he thought, it's easy now. But his driver shut off steam. They've done it again, he said. We've left our tail behind. The last two trucks were running backwards down the hill. The coupling had snapped. But the guard was brave. He carefully made them stop, and he walked down the line to warn Edward, who was coming with a free coach train. Oh, so that's why it was easy, said James, as he backed the other trucks carefully down. What silly things trucks are, he continued. There might have been an accident. Shall I help you, James? Called Edward from behind. No thank you, Edward, answered James. I'll pull them myself. Good, don't let them beat you. So James got ready, and then with a beep beep, he was off. I can do it, he puffed. He pulled and puffed as high as he could. And as Edward cheered him on, James puffed up the hill and disappeared down the other side. They reached their station safely, and James bumped the trucks into the siding. What a nuisance you things are, he said. You caused a lot of trouble for me today. The trucks giggled weakly. As he puffed into the station to rest, he saw that Edward was alongside. And then he saw that someone was standing on the platform. It was the Fat Controller. Oh dear, thought James. What will he say? But the Fat Controller was smiling. I was in Edward's train and saw everything, he said. You've made the most troublesome trucks on the line behave, and after that, you deserve to keep your red coat. And James and Edward looked at each other happily. Sometimes Gordon and Henry slept in James's shed, and they would talk of nothing but bootlaces. while James would talk about engines who got shut up in tunnels and stuck on hills, but they wouldn't listen and went on talking and laughing. "You talk too much, little James," Gordon would say. "A fine, strong engine like me has something to talk about. And I'm the only engine who can pull the express. When I'm not there, they need 2 engines. Think of that. And I've pulled expresses for years, and I've never once lost my way. I seem to know the right line by instinct," said Gordon proudly. But every wise engine knows, of course, that the signalman works the points to make the engines run the right lines. But Gordon was so proud that he had forgotten. "Wake up, James," said Gordon the next morning. James opened an eye, and he forgot to shut it again. "It's nearly time for the express," continued Gordon. "What are you doing, odd jobs?" "Ah, well, we all have to begin somewhere, don't we? Run along now and get my coaches. Don't be late." Groaned James, as he struggled out of the shed and pushed the coaches to the platform. "Lazy Gordon," he said. He was careful not to bump the coaches too hard as to ruin their sparkling new paint. They were singing, "We're going away, we're going away." They were very happy. James sighed as he watched Gordon couple up to his coaches. Unlike James, he banged the coaches very hard and he wasn't very careful at all. The coaches were shocked. Gordon didn't care at all. "Can I let you on a little secret, James?" asked the coaches. "What is it?" "Gordon bumps us too much. We wish to have someone else else's engine for once." James smiled as he watched Gordon leave with the train. He knew he felt needed. "Goodbye, James," hollered Gordon. "See you tomorrow." He disappeared under the bridge. Soon afterwards, Edward rolled into the station. "Good morning, Thomas," said Edward. "Do you have any idea where James is?" "No," replied Thomas. Just then, James came into the bay platform, pushing Annie and Clarabelle. He was puffed. "Hello, Eddie," answered James. "Why are you shunting Annie and Clarabelle?" asked Edward incredulously. "It's my job, innit?" replied James. "No, it isn't," said Edward. "Thomas can easily get his coaches by himself. Can't you, Thomas?" Thomas went so quiet and his eyes widened. "Now look what you've done," sighed Edward. "You sent ideas turning in his head." Later, after James had finished shunting coaches and trucks for Henry, Edward, and Thomas, he was simmering at the platform when a strange hissing noise came into the station. He opened his ears and his eyes to see Gordon slowly sliding in. "Ooh," squealed James. "It's Gordon!" "Shh," hissed Gordon. "Don't give me away." "Oh, don't tell me, Gordon," continued James. "Did I oversleep? Oh, wait, I didn't sleep at all since you left. Maybe the sun fell off its axis and we're doomed in daylight forever." Gordon glared. "Is it tomorrow already, Gordon?" grinned James. "No, it's not," asked Gordon angrily. "I thought so. Did you lose your way, Gordon?" "No, it was lost for me," said Gordon. "I was switched off the main line onto the loop. I had to go all round and back again." "Perhaps it was instinct," laughed James. Meanwhile, all the passengers were pouring out of the train, and in a blink of an eye, were all at the booking office shouting, "We want our money back!" So Topham Hatt groaned. He tried to restore order, and he did by taking the whistle and blowing it so hard and loud that everyone stopped clamoring and looked at Sir Topham Hatt. Then he promised a new train at once. "Gordon can't pull the train," said Sir Topham Hatt, "and there's only one engine left." "James," he said, "will you pull the train?" "Will I ever?" beeped James. He was ecstatic. James was soon steamed up, and he buffered up to the coaches. Gordon looked on, with a mix of enviousness, but a bit of proudness in his eyes. "James," he said, "make your journey an enjoyable one." "Thank you, Gordon," said James, as he departed the station, whistling to his heart's content. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," laughed James. And he was soon hurtling down the line at a very high speed, he was feeling very fast and very happy. "Oh, but Thomas, you don't understand," moaned Henry. "It's my system. It's out of order. I feel so weak." "Rubbish," interrupted Thomas. "You're too fat. You need exercise." "Oh, look, here comes James. I wonder what he's up to." James whistled as they passed by. No word was spoken as James crossed the viaduct and hurtled towards the end of the line. When they arrived, all the passengers got out and thanked James for the splendid run. Sir Topham Hatt was also on the train to see how James would perform. "Well done, James," he smiled. "After all that with the trucks and the coaches, you can now officially work on mainline duties, and you can even shunt the yard if you have nothing else to do. You've earned pulling the express and your red coat." James felt very proud of himself. And when he had returned, he saw Gordon doing something he would have never been seen doing: shunting! And with a happy smile on, too. Come along, he puffed as he shunted the trucks into place. "Ah, James," he grinned. "How was your run? Good, eh? These trucks are misbehaving too much lately, thinking they showed me up on that dreaded hill. They think I'm weak." And he bumped the trucks fiercely behind him into a siding. They screamed. James said nothing, and from then on, he and Gordon became good friends. Most of the time, Gordon would pull the express and James would do small passenger work or goods trains, but sometimes they would be seen doing each other's jobs, and they didn't complain one bit. We'll see about that, won't we?